Hello and welcome to a look at a Badlands for the Amiga, an Atari arcade original that was converted by Domark. A Badlands is set in a futuristic post-apocalyptic setting where you race around tracks trying to win the races, picking up spanners and using said spanners to upgrade your car with various different extra benefits such as better grip, faster acceleration and faster engine. Does that sound unpleasantly familiar? Normally I don't go through the conclusion bit before the end of a video, but this is effectively Super Sprint Mark II. For those who are not familiar with Super Sprint is an arcade game in which you drive around in a racing car on various different tracks trying to win the races, and as you win the races you'll progress through the tracks and you will pick up spanners that you can use to upgrade your car with various different upgrades such as better grip, faster acceleration and faster engine. In my opinion, Badlands from the outset is one of the cheapest semi-sequels I've ever seen. The concept of Super Sprint has basically been overhauled with new graphics and new sounds, and you have an ability to fire missiles, which is not doing an awful lot, but it's basically Super Sprint Mark II. That said, Super Sprint was never officially released for the Amiga, so I suppose in that regard we got a shot at getting a version of Super Sprint on our system, despite the fact that it wasn't of course Super Sprint but a variation of Super Sprint. But again, I will keep insisting it is Super Sprint Mark II because the similarities between the two games outside of the graphics are actually almost frightening. It feels a bit copy-paste, it feels a bit cheap, it feels a bit cutting corners and making the least amount of effort in order to release a new game, which is technically not really a new game. Anyway, you are racing in your souped-up car thing around various different tracks in the ruins of the aftermath of whatever, and in order to progress from track to track, you need to win. Coming second is not good enough, you need to actually win, which is also something that was the case of the Super Sprint. After a race, if you lose, or I would rather say if you don't win, you are given an option to continue, and you have 2 continues besides the initial start, so 3 credits in total. And after that you go into the upgrade menu where you can upgrade various components, and they will cost 3 spanners each upgrade. So you have to balance out and try to work out some sort of way in which you want to upgrade your car for maximum performance. Grip, of course, is always good because it makes you gives you an easier time doing cornering and things like that. Turbo accelerates faster, which is always nice. Higher top speed increases your top speed, which you probably never would have gathered. Missiles will give you extra missiles, and armor skirting will let you resist the effect of being hit by missiles. That's basically the way it works. When it comes to balancing the upgrades, you have to be somewhat careful about not just smacking everything into speed, which possibly seemed like the logical thing to do, because I think the cars are deliberately programmed in such a way that if you stack one specific upgrade, the performance goes out the window basically. Your grip becomes significantly weaker, your acceleration is not very good, and of course as you start winning races the computer will start becoming more, shall we call it, skilled at doing what it's doing. But let us get back to that momentarily. Graphics-wise, it's definitely an update, I would say, not necessarily an upgrade from Super Sprint, and I suppose the cars look a bit more futuristic. But the movement and the flow of the movement is basically exactly the same as it was in Super Sprint. The sound design is basically lifted whole cloth from Super Sprint, except for the fact that there's some gunfire kind of stuff effects, which of course weren't present in Super Sprint because racing cars don't come with missile launchers for some bizarre reason that could make Formula 1 quite interesting, I suppose. And the music, it's decent enough. I find it getting tiresome very, very quickly, but that is an individual thing. The gameplay is an overhead racer, racing around tracks with various different obstacles. The tracks themselves, of course, are the main obstacle, but then you can have oil slicks that will make you skid horribly, and opening and closing barriers that if you get caught in a closing barrier, you can possibly imagine that your car is not going to enjoy that treatment. And of course, in the case of the track you're currently on, there's a hole in the bridge that the car will jump over if you hit the right point, which is not necessarily obvious. You have to work that one out for yourself. Now, the controls. The arcade comes with steering wheels. It is surprisingly fun to play with the steering wheel because you just find yourself hammering that poor steering wheel all over the place, left, right, in order to control your vehicle around corners and bends and turns and twists and jumps and hoops and whatever else there might be. But for some bizarre reason, considering the fact that computers of course use digital controls, it feels basically like the analog foundation of the original arcade controls has been kept, meaning that of course digital is either on or off. It's not slightly on or slightly off, it's either on or off. This means that the controls can feel extremely slippery. It is incredibly easy to overturn or underturn, and it becomes incredibly obnoxious very, very quickly. I should probably mention you can play this game 2 players, but I mean, you could do that with Super Spin as well, so obviously there could be someone watching this that wasn't familiar with Super Spin, but because you can do it Super Spin and this is basically Super Spin Mark II, I assumed, yeah. No, I forgot about it, sorry. You can play this game 1 or 2 player simultaneously. Anyway. While overhead races by and large are fairly enjoyable, I do find them enjoyable. Badlands, because it is Super Sprint Mark II, suffers exactly the same issues that Super Sprint suffers from. Which is the fact that, and I mean it's not unique to Super Sprint or Badlands for that matter, it happens in a lot of overhead races. The computer does not get good, it starts cheating. Suddenly you can have numerous upgrades and you can drive virtually perfectly, and then for some bizarre reason one or both of the computer cars will suddenly be rocket powered and activate their afterburners, and you'll be left in the dirt and there's nothing you can do about it. Multiple upgrades, driving perfect, and you can still get absolutely crushed. And I hate it. I really hate it. I loathe it. I detest it. You should be beaten by skill, not by some cheap, cheesy cheating mechanic in order to swallow your coins. Definitely something that shouldn't be required in a home computer version. On that note, thanks for watching. Take care. See you next time. Bye bye for now.